There are some stories that are best left forgotten, but I ain't fucking forget. So let's talk about Green Lantern Arisia and how she aged herself up so that she could be with Hal Jordan. As wild and weird as this story is, it serves as a great example of the issues with the male gaze. Alright, let's get into this shit. So Green Lantern Arisia is a young teen that joins the Green Lantern Corps. She's seen as a little sister to Hal Jordan, and she refers to him as a big brother. When Hal Jordan is going to quit the Green Lantern Corps, that's when you see that she has a bit of a little crush on him. I'm saying a little bit of a crush, but really she professed her love to him, and here we fucking go. When she becomes part of the Green Lantern Corps that's based on Earth, we start seeing her no longer depicted as a teen, but like a bit older now. And also now she's flirting with Hal Jordan, and Hal Jordan puts a stop to that shit. He's like, hey, we gotta talk. Hal Jordan's like, yo, you gotta dead this flirting stuff. You are half my age. This is where shit gets wild because Arisia's like, well, on Earth years, I'm 14, but my planet circles the Earth 2 times as fast, so technically I'm 28. Let me fucking tell you something. When you throw in technically and you're not talking about wrestling, or you're talking about text, or you're not talking about sports or gun bars, stop. Just stop. Hal Jordan's like, yo, your planet could have circled the sun 100 times as fast. You're still a teen in my eyes. Arisia gets upset and runs off, and if we had just left it there, we would have been good. We would have been okay. And it's funny because I thought this story was one that took place maybe in like the Silver Age of comics. The fact that it took place in the 80s is... The only thing I can say is the cocaine must have been fucking coke in an editorial. Later on, Hal Jordan and Arisia are fighting Black Hand, an enemy of Hal Jordan, and he drains their power rings and traps them in a cave together. They wake up from the attack, are like, oh man, what's going on? And then Hal Jordan now notices that Arisia is as tall as he is now. She's become a woman. We're here now. Arisia's freaking out, and Hal Jordan calms her down the best way he knows how because he doesn't know how to talk to women, apparently. Also, I want to say, I think the trope of slapping a woman that's hysterical was really just an excuse to slap a woman. And as Hal Jordan and Arisia are trying to figure out what happened, Arisia's telling Hal Jordan, well, you know I loved you since the day I met. He's like, hey, you had a crush. She's like, nah, it was love. And that desire was so strong when mixed with her will, it made her subconsciously age herself up to maturity. The ring did what she wanted without her knowing it. Hal Jordan's like, all right, well, easy enough. You can just will it back. And she's like, nah, I'm not changing back. Heavy sigh. She didn't know this was happening, but it's what she wanted. And now that she understands what's happened, she still wants it. And now she's telling Hal Jordan, don't patronize me. I'm not half your age anymore. My mind's matured. I'm mature. Hal Jordan's like, all right, you know what? Cool. I'm going to respect your agency even though I slapped you earlier. That's more of a reflection on me because I don't know how to regulate my own emotions. And there's probably some misogyny rooted in that as well, but that's not what this video is about at the moment, so let's keep going with the story. Hal's telling her, you're talking about love and I don't reciprocate that. And she's telling him, well, it's cool, whatever. I'm going to be around. I'm not going to throw myself at you, but I know you like me as a girl. We can see what you think of me as a woman, which is a wild sentence. Keep in mind, you're still stuck in this cave, and now Arisia's asking him about the people he's dated. She's like, oh, tell me about Carol Ferris. Tell me about these other women. It basically turns into the video of DMX featuring Cisco, what these women want from a man. Hal Jordan's basically like, well, there was Brenda, Letitia, Linda, Felicia, Dawn, LaShawn. A wild bobcat then appears. Hal Jordan tries to fight it, then Arisia jumps in and actually saves his life. And he tells her, oh, honey, you saved my life. She's like, yo, don't keep calling me honey unless you mean that shit. Which he has done a lot. And then there's this awkward silence, and they cut to the other Green Lantern Corps members. And we see John Stewart, Kamatui, Kilowog, and a bunch of other Green Lantern Corps members coming to save Arisia and Hal Jordan. They're digging them out of the cave. And what do they find? Hal Jordan and Arisia making out. If we could just zoom in on the shock of John Stewart and Katmatui's face, of all the wild shit going on in the storyline, they have the blackest reaction to this shit, which is the most realistic reaction in my eyes. They see Arisia and she's telling them, hey, can you guys stop staring at me? And if you just look at Katma's face, this is why I love her. Katma's like, yeah, you're right, of course. But anyway, we're gonna talk about how we saw them kissing yesterday. That's the more astounding thing to me. John Stewart's like, this shit is fucking weird. She was a kid, maybe she's not anymore, but still, Hal is older than I am. And it's funny that we have these different perspectives. Kamatui is an alien, and she's a woman, so there's her perspective. John Stewart's a man, and an Earthman. There's his perspective. And then we have the perspective of Salak, who was talking with Chip, who's also an alien, and he's trying to tell them what's going on between Hal and Arisia. And for Salak, who's all OCD and just detail-oriented about data, he doesn't really get it, because he's like, okay, this is about emotions and hormones, Anyway, anyone have numbers they need crunched? When the group agrees to meet up later, John's talking to Kamatui like, hey, what you make of this shit going on? Katmatui's like, it's the same thing as you and I. It's love. John Stewart's like, yeah. It's the kind of love that bothers me because she was just a kid. Katmatui's like, she was. Now she's a woman. And she's talking about how the transformation is different for every woman, but hers only differs in speed of it. John Stewart's like, I think that's significant because she never got to live out her teen years day by day. She missed out on all those experiences. And even though she's mature mentally and physically, as she says, those experiences do help you when you grow. And Okay, I'm just gonna say, she was a fucking kid. This shit's weird. This shit's weird. Katma then talks about how love is, it comes out of nowhere. She was gonna be married before, but then stayed with the core. She relearned how to love again by meeting Jon Stewart. Love is always random when it pops up, and it's up to friends to nurture them. I disagree. First of all, don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Second of all, Katma Tui is always a level-headed person and very critical as well. For me, I feel like her being an alien and seeing weird shit all the time is the excuse used to make it just seem A-okay. I feel like she wouldn't let this stuff fly because she's been critical of Hal Jordan before. For me, this feels out of character for her. Then we cut to Arisia and Hal Jordan talking about how new and weird this is gonna be. Arisia's like, I just want them to stop seeing me as a kid. I gotta show them that I'm still the same person, just grown now. Hal Jordan's like, yeah, and I gotta show them that I'm not a child molester. And those words would become a meme for years to come. And what doesn't make it better is Arisia saying, hey, don't be ridiculous. Everyone knows you're a good man and how much you fought me off when I was a child. Phrasing, but now I'm a woman and you're a man and that's that. I'm going to leave it there, but on CBR, there's an article detailing this whole thing written by Brian Cronin back in 2014. He talks about how the team just accepts it by Green Lantern number 211 and details Hal and Arisia's relationship, the troubles they face, and their eventual end. I mentioned earlier in the video the issue of the male gaze. And simply put, this is what happens when you treat women like objects. There was no need for Hal Jordan to get into a relationship with someone that was like a little sister to him. That their big brother, little sister relationship took that turn is wild because we've seen others in that position where it never took that turn. Wolverine and Kitty Pryde, Wolverine and Jubilee, Cyclops and Magic. And I can't help but wonder if comics wasn't such a boys club, especially earlier on, and there was actually women in editorial and women writing, when that storyline got pitched, it might not have ever seen the light of day. Which is exactly why you need folks from different walks of life in your editorial team, as your creatives and as your peers. Folks get so mad about seeing a woman protagonist in a video game or something like that, but without women or women writers, you get shit like this. As wild as that story is, or no matter what they were going for, at the center of it was the male gaze and the sexualization of a teen girl. The women are constantly sexualized in media. Now, what I will say is that it was dope that when Arisia returned in the 05 Green Lantern run, we got to see Arisia become a mentor to Sodom Yat, a Green Lantern that was prophesized as becoming the ultimate Green Lantern. She was put in charge of watching over him as well as training him. Their dynamic almost mirrored Katma Tui and Jon Stewart, which is dope, but it would be nice to see her within a role where she doesn't have to be also the love interest. However, the agency she's given is a lot better from what we've seen before in her earlier years. Again, when people complain about women writers or women protagonists, all I hear and see is just issues with the woman not being the love interest or not being just an object. And the writer that made this relationship between Hal Jordan and Arisia and the other writer that continued it, they did write other stuff that was good too. However, it's still important to criticize things that did not work out so that you don't see that happen again. And I guess that's the end of my TED Talk.